I'm Amber, and this is Mom's New Identity. Hello. Welcome back if you're a subscriber or a just returning viewer. If you are new to this channel, I want to say welcome. And really, what we're doing on this channel is just rediscovering our identities after healing and reprioritizing our mental health, whether that be as women, as mothers, or just as people in general. So, if that is you, if you are on a journey of healing or really just rediscovering yourself and trying to find your purpose, and you're looking for maybe a community of people that are trying to do the same, then you are in the right place. So if that sounds like you and you're not already subscribed, go ahead and click that subscribe button and click that bell notification. I do post new videos every week. If you didn't get a chance to check out last week's video, I've linked it in the description. Last week's video was really vulnerable for me. Let's just put it that way, because I don't always like to admit when I'm struggling or when I'm wrong. That's just my ego, but let's just put it this way. I get super honest and vulnerable about a struggle that I am still currently walking through. Also, if you're new here and you want to know a little bit more about my story, who I am, why I started this channel, I have also linked that video in the description below. I kind of explain that briefly in the intro, but it just kind of dives deeper into my story in that if you're curious about checking that out. Or if you're not already, you can follow me on socials. I've linked them in the description below as well, of course, as always. Before we get into the video, I want to let you guys know that I have a very special announcement that I'm going to be making at the end of this video. So be sure to stick around to the end. I'm excited to let you guys know what's going on. Today's video topic, and in case you haven't noticed, I've had a bit of a change of scenery. I have recently decided to change the time that I do my videos. I was usually doing them during the day, during my kids' naps, but their naps are changing. And so they kept waking up, and that was just really hard because I kept getting interrupted. So I've decided to switch to evening recording. So if the lighting looks different, if the background looks different, that's why. So in case you were wondering, getting into today's video. Today is an interesting one because I wasn't sure that I wanted to touch on these things just because it can maybe be a bit controversial to some people. But I feel like specifically if you're a woman or a mother or a wife or a combination of the two or three, then you may relate to these things. You may hear these things and think, oh my gosh, yes. I know that if I struggle with some of these things, then it's very, very likely that women, mothers, married women will relate to this. Today's video is going to be about these 6 toxic beliefs that I internalized for far too long, that maybe you have too, and how I am undoing those things. So let's get into it. Of course, I have to throw this disclaimer in, as always. I am not a professional. I am not a therapist. Okay. Everything that I share, the things that I talk about, they may not apply to you in your situation because we all come from different places. We have different backgrounds. We have different traumas, really. And so all of us just have different stories. And so the best thing that you can do in your situation, if you feel like you're struggling, or maybe if I mentioned something that just brings something up for you, I'm always going to suggest seeking out professional therapy. I know that it's helped me in my life, and so I am a huge advocate for therapy. While I want to throw out there that therapy doesn't fix all your problems, it can help to bring light to things that maybe you weren't aware of. There you have it. But let's get into this video. Thing number 1, a good woman, or a quote unquote wifey or wife material, as some people would put it, is a great caregiver. Or if you want to put it this way, she cooks, cleans and takes care of her man and all that stuff. If I could really nail down where it came from, I would say just honestly things that I heard in the music that I listened to, in the TV shows that I've watched as a teenager, in my circle of influence. I would hear guys talking about, oh, she's wife material, she can cook, she can clean, and, she gets down on the bedroom, whatever. I've actually heard that recently too. But that's just something that, while I think those things are important, I don't think that those things are what makes a good woman, in my opinion. Some may disagree. But in my opinion, a good woman really encompasses the traits and characteristics of just a good person. And that can look like someone who is compassionate, someone who is integrous, someone who is honest, someone who is caring in that way, that they care about other people, but also someone who is firm in their beliefs, someone who stands up for what's right, even if it's unpopular, someone who's a leader, someone who takes care of their family in whatever way that looks like. Like those traits, being able to cook and clean and make a house a home, as they would say it. Those were just the main things that I would hear. Some of the other things that I listed just now, I don't think I ever really heard as that being encompassing of what a good woman is. If anything, that's probably what would make a good man. But in my opinion, if we all just focus on being better humans and not better men or better women according to what society tells us we're supposed to be, well, we'd probably all be a hell of a lot happier. That being said, that is really what I believe now as far as what a good woman is. And honestly, that's just my own opinion on what makes a good woman, right? I think another thing that I forgot to mention is a good woman. This also makes a good man or a good human, whatever you want to refer that to. Accountability, being able to hold the people you care about the most accountable for their actions and hold them up to a higher standard, right? Encourage the people around you to grow and to be better and to do better, right? So when you notice that someone is doing something unethical, being able to say, hey, you're better than that, right? That obviously goes kind of hand in hand with integrity. But that's really just what I believe, is that if we focused more on the qualities that make a good person, a good human being, the definition of a good man or a good woman, I think that our world would look very different than it does today. Dating would probably be really different too. I'm not in the dating thing, thank God. The next belief that I'm currently undoing, and I did talk about this in my video last week, is that my body and my appearance were a direct factor in whether or not I was worthy of love or approval, of affection. And in other words, meeting society's beauty standards. And that, maybe my hair is not nice enough, or my body is not thin enough, or in today's day and age, it's, is my booty big enough? Are my hips big enough? Like, is my waist small enough? Are my breasts, perky and beautiful enough? Do I need surgery? Do I need all the, and so the thing about it is none of those things, don't get me wrong, none of those things are wrong, okay? Getting plastic surgery, getting Botox, choosing to, make whatever alterations to your body. There's nothing wrong with that. I think where the problem lies is that your intrinsic value and your intrinsic worth, if that is directly tied to your appearance, well, then that's where it's a problem, right? Because it's not coming from a deeper space. You're not saying to yourself, I am worthy and valuable and beautiful and sexy and lovable despite how my body looks. And I think for a long time, I just didn't think that way, despite what maybe people would tell me about my body. And I believed that for a very long time, that my body had to look a certain way, my face had to look a certain way for me to be beautiful, or for me to be considered sexy or worthy of love and affection, or a lasting partner, right? And the way that has impacted me is that my husband looks at me and he tells me I'm beautiful, or he tells me I'm sexy, or he tells me these things, and like I don't believe him, right? Like, and I know if you're a mother or a woman that you probably hear this and you're like, oh, yeah, me too. Like, yeah, me too. And it doesn't help that we're constantly inundated with social media that causes us to compare ourselves consistently. And so if you're the type of person that just sees someone on social media and immediately that person makes you feel insecure, or makes you just feel jealous even, I think it's important to look at those feelings and say, why do I feel that way? Is it because I'm not happy with myself? Am I like negatively projecting onto that person because I don't think that I'm worthy of love or affection if I don't look like that person, right? So I think that undoing that is really hard, right? Especially if the media is always pushing out this idea that you're supposed to look a certain way. But I'm learning. I don't want to say that I've mastered that, because I certainly haven't. I am learning to love my body for where it is at right now, with all its imperfections. And actually, a podcast that I had listened to, I don't know that they've updated any more episodes or seasons, I should say, but it was really good. I really loved it. It's called Talking Body, and I will link that in the description. But gosh, it was so good. I have to go back and honestly listen to the episode. The next thing that I'm currently undoing as far as beliefs go is the idea that my pleasure is not important, or that it is shameful. And I know this maybe is a little bit uncomfortable for some people to talk about, but I think it's important. So I have always heard of how, when a woman puts out, I gotta throw this out, that like, Dad, if you're watching this video, you can skip this part if you want to, but it is important. I'm not gonna go into specifics, but I think where this belief really comes from is that there's really not a lot of knowledge, for starters, of what is pleasurable to a woman, right? Like, there's really not. It's almost kind of like taboo in a sense. Like, we know what gets a guy going. Like, we know what gets him to the finish line. But when it comes to a woman, it's like there's almost this idea that, like, oh, women are just like too much, and it's just like it's a lot of work, to do that. But the fact is that the best interactions, physical interactions, sexual interactions, happen when both parties are equally as enthusiastic and equally enjoying things, right? There was actually a book that was given to me by my mom. It's called Come As You Are, and I'll link that in the description below. But it's pretty much just like a book for women about discovering their sexuality, and like what gets them going, what doesn't, because it's made out to be this very complex thing, and in some ways it can be, right? Like, women in a lot of ways are very complex creatures, but it's not anything to be ashamed of. But the problem really that I only recently noticed is that I wasn't making that a priority, right? Like, I wasn't making that very clear that, hey, if this happens, then I need to get mine too. Okay, like, so when it's a consistent thing, right, that your needs are not being met, well, then the idea of even engaging in sexual interaction with your spouse or your significant other or whatever, it's like off-putting. It's like, it feels like a chore, right? It can feel like a chore. And a good partner, sexual partner, will prioritize your pleasure as well. Okay? A good partner will recognize and say, hey, like, did you enjoy that? Was that fun? Was there something I could have done different? Like, communication is important in that aspect too. And I think a lot of times, I know for me as a woman, like, I didn't want to, I didn't want to bruise his ego, right? Like, I didn't want to be like, oh no, that was not enjoyable at all. I did not have fun. That was too fast. Like, I don't want to bruise his ego, because that's another thing, like, that I would always hear is, men, they're so, like, sensitive about that aspect. Basically, is that for the longest time, I didn't set the expectation in the bedroom that, hey, my needs need to be met too, however that looks. And maybe that came from a place of, like, I'm not that important. I should just, put my husband's needs first. And, the idea that, oh, I'm a good woman or a good wife if, I'm always making sure that my husband is pleased. And I'm not saying that that's not important. But the fact is, if you are going to make that a priority for your partner, they should be doing that for you as well. Okay? Let's just put it that way. It brings me to my next topic, or I should say my next belief, is that as a wife, I should never, if I can avoid it, I shouldn't say no to my husband in the bedroom. I shouldn't say no to sex, or I run the risk of him cheating on me. And this one's a tough one, because where this belief comes from, the idea that I can't say no or my husband's going to cheat, is one, I actually had someone give me that advice at my bridal shower, is never say no. And really, I think also just what I heard, like, growing up, I don't want to say as a young adult, as a young woman, is that, like, if you don't give it up, he's going to go somewhere else and find it, right? Like, as if men are just these, like, creatures that are completely incapable of controlling themselves. And, like, that's a lot of blame shifting, right? That's a lot of shifting the blame onto women, when really, when someone cheats, it is a them problem. Okay? When someone chooses to be unfaithful, when someone chooses to go outside of their committed relationship and get their needs met, it's extremely selfish, for starters. And that is really just them compensating for whatever issues that they're dealing with. Okay, so, and because those people are not self-aware enough to know that that's the reason why, they do not like to take accountability for the fact that they are the only reason why they cheat. Okay, it's almost as if the idea that if a man's needs aren't being met physically, right? Like, if he's not having sex in the bedroom, or if he's not getting any from his woman, from his wife, whatever, that for them, for that person, it's just easier to go find it someone else than going and communicating in a healthy way with their partner and saying, hey, this need of mine is not being met. What's going on? Let's talk through it. Let's process. Let's figure it out. What's really going on? And not being defensive when his partner comes back and says, well, you don't do XYZ, and that is why I don't have any desire. Or I'm tired, I'm stressed, you don't help me with anything, and so it just feels like a chore. A lot of men, unfortunately, as much as I don't want to just, like, single these out, but a lot of men are not self-aware and are not emotionally intelligent. And it's because, like, the patriarchy you're going to hear me refer to this very many times, the patriarchy does not allow them to process their emotions. It teaches them that men who express themselves emotionally or are vulnerable are weak. And because of that, they don't get the opportunity to learn to express themselves. And so I don't necessarily blame them for that, for falling short in that sense. I think too many of them were not held to a high standard. And it appears as though that is starting to change. But too many of them are just not self-aware. They're just not, unfortunately. And so going back to this idea that like saying no means that if my husband's needs aren't met, that he's gonna go out and go find somebody else. Like, it's not a you problem, it's a them problem. Like, I don't think anybody can do anything to prevent that, in my opinion. And I mean, even in the media, like, perfect example, Beyonce and Jay-Z. Like, literally, what you could have everything, you could be everything, you could be Beyonce and still get cheated on, right? So it's a them problem, to put it that way. If I'm not feeling in the mood, well, then it's my right to communicate that to my husband and say, you know what, I'm not feeling it. Or if we had an experience and it was not enjoyable, I have every right to say, you know what, I didn't enjoy that and here's why. Thing number 5 is that, and quick disclaimer, I believed this before having kids. I believed that a good mom will do everything that she can in her power to stay home and raise her kids. And I don't believe that now. Despite the fact that I am a stay-at-home mother, I was more or less forced into a corner of having to stay at home with the kids because it was just honestly the most affordable option for our family in this country that does not provide a lot of resources to families. And as much as you want to say like they're asking for handouts, like a lot of this stuff is subsidized by first world countries, okay? Germany, like Finland, the UK, whatever, Australia, I think even. A lot of that stuff is like paid for by the government. And like, we don't have to get into politics. We're not going to get into politics. But how you choose to provide for your children, whether that is staying at home to take care of them because daycare is just too expensive and it's easier to just rely on one income and you can find a way to do that, great. If you cannot afford to live off one income and you have to have 2 incomes and you have to put your children in daycare, that's fine. That's what you have to do, right? Like, we have to stop this, like, working moms or work harder than stay-at-home moms. It's harder being, like, it's just fucking hard, okay? Like, it is just hard being a parent and raising children in a government that doesn't care. Like, as much as I don't want to, again, you know what? Fuck that. No, I do. That's the reality of the country that we live in. Okay, that is the reality. It needs to change. So, I do believe that however a mother needs to provide for her children is the best thing that she can do for her children, and only she knows what that looks like. So there are certainly benefits to, working outside of the home and having your children being taken care of at a daycare or whatever, as well as staying home with your children. There's a lot of things to consider. And so how you choose to do that, it's nobody's business. Like, why? Just do what's best for your family. And all of us moms need to support each other in that. We need to just say, you know what, you're doing the best you can. Like, yeah, we may not be on the same page, we may not relate because we don't necessarily have the same experience, but it's not a competition of who struggles the hardest. Like, it's not. It's just, hey, you're doing the best you can. Keep going. Proud of you. Like, that's all you need to say, okay? So, the very last and final belief that I am undoing is that a good wife is submissive or shrinks herself and tries to like uplift her husband, or maybe lets him lead and take care of the finances and provide for the family. And while I'm not saying that is bad, right, because that's actually the situation that I'm currently in, right? My husband is the primary financial provider for our family. That's not, and this kind of ties into the last thing that I just talked about, that's not the standard, and it shouldn't be the standard, right? Like, if it just works out better for a family, like if the wife in the situation is able to be the primary provider for the family and be the one that works full time because she just earns more and they can more easily live off of her income than the husband's income, well, then let her be the one to provide, right? And there's just a lot of shaming that goes on both sides, honestly, if a father decides to stay at home and take care of the children. Like, oh, you're lazy because you're not working. Or on the flip side, if a wife or a mother works outside the home and is a primary provider, well, why don't you take care of your kids? It's like, no, just stop with this shit. Like, seriously. And a lot of that belief too came from the MLM that I was in, that really just emphasized the gender roles of, the man provides and the woman stays at home with the kids and takes care of the household and everything like that. And it's very outdated, because I think the more we try to fit into these boxes, the more we are made to feel inadequate. The more we are made to feel like we're not good enough and that we're failing, and thus leading to the need to, I guess, rid ourselves of those feelings of inadequacy through temporary pleasure, whether that be like alcohol or drugs or just, eating, binge eating, or just like, I don't know, whatever types of habits that are borderline self-sabotaging, right? Not that there's anything wrong with like having a drink or two, or taking a toke once in a while. But I think just the idea that when we find these things that are meant to give us temporary pleasure because we have these consistent feelings of inadequacy, or we feel the need to escape from our reality because we feel inadequate, because we feel like we're not good enough, well, that just leads to unhappiness. That leads to sorrow. That leads to shame. I mean, I don't know what other way to put it. So at this point, like, at least me in my relationship, right? I don't know, what works best for your relationship, but I know for me in my relationship, when it comes to me and my husband, it's not me being submissive and letting him do everything and letting him lead. It's, we're a team and we are partners. And, there's going to be times where maybe he's the primary provider, or maybe there will come a time when I'm the primary provider and he doesn't have to work a 9 to 5 anymore. That's honestly my goal. But, we're not in that situation. And so I think the fact that I think the more he and I come to this place of like undefining what a good husband or what a good wife looks like, we are better able to just find inner peace and joy and happiness, and then have that flow into our relationship and, into our children, and be a collective, happier, more joyful family. I hope that me sharing these beliefs, and just kind of talking through why these things are like toxic and where they may come from, I hope that it encouraged you to maybe reconsider how maybe some of these beliefs or other beliefs are impacting your life, and whether or not they need some undoing. Okay, now for the special announcement. Drum roll. Mom's New Identity is becoming a podcast. So I'm still going to be uploading to YouTube. The format may look a little bit different. The setting may look a little bit different, but you can still listen on YouTube if you don't have access to podcasts. But I just feel like the nature of my videos and the things that I talk about really are just more ideal for a podcast. And not to mention being able to collaborate or interview other creators or people that are maybe in the same I don't want to say industry, but talk about maybe the same topics or relative topics, I think are just have been very impactful for me personally. And so that's my goal. That is my end goal, really, is just to impact people and impact lives. And I just feel like podcasts are just sometimes they're easier to listen to, I know for me, like I'll sit and listen to like a 30-minute to like hour and a half podcast. But if I see a YouTube video that's 30 minutes to an hour and a half, I'm not gonna sit and watch it for that long. And if you don't sit and watch my videos the entire time, you know what? I'm not mad at you. Okay, I'm not mad at you. But I will be putting Mom's My Identity on podcasts. So I am, of course, going to reformat some of these videos into podcasts. So if you go and follow the show once it is up and running, you may hear some of the same videos, but don't be afraid to listen again. Maybe you'll pick out little nuggets and things that maybe you didn't quite hear or catch the first time you listened or watched the videos. So I'm really excited for that. I can't wait. The only thing though is that because I'm going to be reformatting those, I may be taking a couple weeks off. The holidays are quickly approaching as well, so you may not see a lot more videos from me in the coming weeks, but please just know that I will be uploading them to podcasts as soon as possible. Now, actually, I have an extra announcement. I guess technically it's two, is that not only am I transitioning Mom's My Identity to a podcast, but I will be doing a podcast with my dad. And I'm really excited about this. Some of you that are closest to me maybe know that I've been talking about this a lot. Specifically, we're going to be discussing issues that face the Latino community as a whole, and maybe how some of the beliefs and such that we carry, how they're negatively impacting us and what we can do to change that. We're definitely looking at having lots and lots of guests and just people in the community or in la comunidad, I should say, that are just doing the work, to change and to bring us all forward. So we're really excited about that. It's not going to be on video for now because, just the setup it's kind of hard to get, two cameras right now. But at some point it will be on video. But in the meantime, so that's the big announcement, is that I'm actually going to be starting 2 podcasts. So pray for me, y'all, because it's going to be a lot of work. But if either one of those podcasts sound like maybe they are something that you'd be interested in, then be on the lookout. I will be sharing that on socials that I'm going to be starting those. So, but YouTube heard it first. So super excited for this journey, and I'm excited for you guys to come on this journey with me and just be a part of this community. I hope to impact more people in my community, in the Latino community, this community of women and mothers. And if you're in both, well then even better. Maybe both of these podcasts will resonate with you. But in the meantime, I want to thank you for sticking around if you're still here, because this video is going on for a long time. So I really don't know how long it's going to be at the end of it all. But if you're still here, thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate you. I love you, care about you, and let's continue this journey of healing, reprioritizing our mental health, and just rediscovering who we are as a group, as a community. So until next time, thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Well, why am I going to say that? If you're not, what am I trying to say? I'm saying that because what am I trying to say? the next thing, I've tried to say this a million times. Let's finish this here. Going to